Hello, my name is Charlene Owens. I love children. I love writing children's books for kids, and I love teaching them to read. That is my passion, reading and printing. I have been known as the printing whisperer at my school. Anyway, so today I'm going to give you the foundation of teaching your child to read. This day at COVID, people are worried about their kids falling behind, so I am going to give you some foundations to teach your child. Okay, so the first thing is sounds. You want to teach the children the sounds of the letters first. And that includes the vowels, especially the vowels, because the vowels eventually, when they're reading, will say their own name. So they get confused about whether, and they all, quite often, I find that they say, every time they see an A or an E or an I, they say the name. If it's a short letter like, or a short word like lip, lipe, it's like, no. Whenever you see, there's nothing making that I say I, so it's got to be an I, right? Lip, which we take for granted, but they see that and they see an I, and they do that with all the different vowels, because at some point they do say their own name, like, right? But there's an E at the end to make the I say I. And so I like to teach them the sounds first. And that includes the digraphs, O, all of these things, oo, or, and sometimes all these things. It's the sounds that help them to read better. So, sounds first, then you can move on to other things. Now, I have some books here to show you that I like to use. This one I like. It is called Sing, Spell, Read, and Write. This is hard to come by. I found the set of books on Amazon, and it's a very good program. After each book, it moves on. Like, for instance, this book is the soft sound ah, so it has a lot of ah sounds in it. Dan has a rag, okay? And the next book will advance a little bit further, and the next one will advance a little bit further. So I like these for that. You have to have the sounds first. I also like Jolly Phonics. Jolly Phonics, right here, Jolly Phonics. You need these 3 books that I've shown you to do this right, because they teach you how to do it. You can photocopy stuff. This thing is an actual workbook. And what I like about Jolly Phonics is it teaches you to print correctly while you're learning the sounds, okay? And you use these, after they know the sounds, as you're going through here, you can teach them these words to spell, because they know all the sounds and they can spell it. Now, if you look at underneath, they have dots. And see under OA, it has 1 dot because that's one sound, O. That helps trigger in their brain. I also like to get them up and down and moving, and that's kinetic learning, and that works for some kids too. I like to do it all. So the kids that I work with are struggling, so I do every way I can think of, and then they get it. But you got to do repeating. I forget what else I was going to say about that. Also, Jolly Phonics has this wonderful flashcards. They have the sounds that you're learning, so you can flash your kids, and they have dots under these. So the tricky words don't have dots. The tricky words are those words that you can't sound out. Now these words, like play, for instance, under the AY there's 1 dot. That shows them that's one sound, and they know what AY says. It says A because they've learnt it before they started reading. And this really helps with their spelling, because you can say to them, oh, what's making that A say A in this word, right? So that really helps. Another way I find is really good is if you don't have all that, you don't need all the fancy stuff, unless, of course, your child is slow to learn, then you might, Telephonics is good because it has actions that goes with it. So like the ah sound would be ah for an ant crawling up your arm. So that's the action. And it teaches you all that in these books. That's why it's nice to have all these books, because it teaches you the action. So when you teach the child the action and say they're like, oh, I forget what ah says, then you can go like this. They're like, oh, right, ah for ant. So that's very useful. Also, another way that I like to use, which goes well with the Jolly Phonics, is you take the alphabet and you split it into 3 sections: beginning, middle, and end. And you start with the beginning. This also helps with learning the alphabet, so that if they're doing anything alphabetical, they can figure it out quickly. You start with the first section and you teach them how to print as well as say the sound. So I would start just below this blue line. I'd go up to the blue line and around and down and touch the red line, up and down. I would do that, and then I'd say ah, and then I say, okay, your turn. So you need these lines to help them form their letters properly. Also, B's and D's are tricky. And P's. B's, D's, P's. The kids get these mixed up. A lot of times I see P's always capital. Sorry, it's hard to print in the air. But I'm going to show you how to teach them how to do a B and a D correctly. So they're made differently. So if you teach them the right motion as well as saying what it is, that gets in their brain. Oh, when I do this, it's a D. When I do this, it's a B. So let's start with the B sound. And you start on the dark blue line. You go down to the red line. You go up to the dotted line, hit it, come around, touch the red line, and close. And that's a B. Okay? And I say all those things as I'm doing it, and then I say it's your turn. Then they do it. Okay? And they might have to do it more than once. You don't get perfection the first time on anything. A D is you start on the dotted line, and you go up to the dotted line, around, down to the red line, all the way up to the blue line, and down to the red line. Duh. See how they're made differently? The B is down, up, and around, and the D is around, up, and down. Now the P goes into the basement. So you start on the dotted line, you go past the red line, into the basement, up to the dotted line, and around to the red line. P, P. Now, also, I would call P a basement letter because it goes down into the basement. If this is the floor of your house, the P is going down into the basement. These are tall letters, just like an H is a tall letter, an L is a tall letter. Things like this, sorry, can you see? Things like this, A, U, R, they're small letters because they go in this line, okay? These tall letters, basement letters. And you have G goes down, Q down with a little kick. I use all of these words when I'm teaching the kids to read because it just helps them get in the flow of doing it. And it works really well for me. And I've had plenty of teachers tell me, wow, I didn't know they could print that well. And I'm like, they can, they just rush through it. So as you teach them this from the start, it builds up that muscle memory in their hand, and it connects to their memory in their brain, and it really helps to move along their reading. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Charlene Owens. I love kids. I love writing and teaching. See you next time.